Good morning, everyone. Hi. My mom will be joining us later, I hope. And so it's my honor to be able to welcome you all on behalf of our family and the JRSP board. So, for those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm Betty's daughter and Jeffrey Rubinoff's stepdaughter. And I'm also on the board of directors for the Jeffrey Rubinoff Foundation and for the Sculpture Park Foundation, along with my mom and Alana Lingram, who will be here tomorrow, who's the Dean of Arts at UVic. So I'm really looking forward to this topic today. It looks like there's lots of different perspectives on the topic of art and the sacred. James and Karun always have this kind of knack for picking a topic that I think is right for the time. It feels like with everything that's going on in the world right now, we can all use a bit of the sacred in our world here. Um, and Jeffrey would often talk about how, for him, successful art had a kind of transcendent quality that could kind of transcend this moment and be understood by future generations. So I think that this topic would really resonate with him if he was still with us today. In my own work as a contemporary art curator, I kind of view the gallery as a church. I think of it as a place that you can go and everything else can fall away, and you can kind of have a moving experience, or you can contemplate the world in a new way. So Jeffrey's vision for the park was really to offer this kind of sense of awe, um, and to have a sacred experience, whatever that means to you. So it's a great honor for us to be able to continue to share his work in this place with you all. And I hope you truly have a meaningful time with us over the next couple days and enjoy connecting with this place and with each other. So thank you for being here.
I would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional and unceded territory of the Comox First Nation and others, and that we humbly acknowledge that this land was perhaps not equitably and uh, not equitably taken in the past, and we are committed to working towards reconciling and making amends for that, and hope that that becomes a more substantive and not just a substantive project and not just empty words in the future. Um, so we gratefully acknowledge that we're allowed to be here, and acknowledge that our presence contributes to hopefully the values that we share in common. Um, I would love to acknowledge the generosity of both Jeffrey Rubinoff and Betty Kennedy and the whole family for allowing us to be in their space on their land, and it is Betty's home. Some of you met Betty last night. Betty lives out in the house that, if you were on the tour, you saw. And as you might imagine, it's quite something to have a public space in your private space. So it will be remiss not to acknowledge that. I knew Jeffrey personally, and he was a good friend and an incredible mentor to me. And I'm very honored to be able to continue his legacy and vision for art. He believed in the power of art, and I think uh, he believed in the power of people who wanted something out of art other than commodification. And these forms represent, I think, part of his act of will. He, I don't think I wouldn't consider it art, but I would consider it part of his act of will. He initiated the forum. He wanted this kind of dialogue out of his interaction with the art market. That's not what he got, and I think he created a space for collegial, interdisciplinary discussion. We have a round table today. We have some folks on the side in the overflow seats, and if you want to, you're certainly most welcome to take up a seat if you find one. Um, the idea is for this to be a collegial event, that questions, however they may appear to you, are handled with respect, and that everyone's welcome here. We treat each other with respect and as equals and colleagues. So, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Some people have come from a very far distance, some not so far, some repeats, some from the island, and young, very young people sitting over there. So, we'd like to acknowledge everybody, as well as the kindness of our wonderful staff who will be serving, and the folks at Seabreeze. So, thanks to everybody. Welcome to everybody. And I'll leave it to James to give us an introduction.
Thanks, Karun. Thanks, Jared. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2025 Company of Ideas Forum here at the Jeffrey Rubinoff Sculpture Park. I'm delighted to be here. It's my 15th time coming to the forum. It's always a highlight of my year. I'm delighted to see so many familiar faces and also so many new people. I look forward to getting to speak to all of you over the next couple of days. Now, as people who have been to these forums before know, and there are quite a few of you in the room, we use Company of Ideas forums to explore the biggest cultural issues in serious, accessible, interdisciplinary ways, with a particular focus on questions that relate to the ideas and the work of Jeffrey Rubinoff himself. And over the last 15 years, more than that of that, we have done a sort of litany of enormous subjects, haven't we, Kareem? We've done art and war, art and moral conscience, art and crisis, art and music. Last year we did art and AI, which some of us are still recovering from. And particularly Betty, in fact, which is maybe why she hasn't turned up this morning. And this year we're doing perhaps the biggest subject of all, which is the art and sainthood. And this is obviously such a fundamental subject in the history of art. It's so fundamental, but it's hard to imagine them without each other. It's hard to imagine art without religion and religion without art. And you could do a thought experiment, couldn't you? I know we're a room full of art lovers, but I'm sure everyone here, most people here, will be on a big art book somewhere, a coffee table, history of art book somewhere. If you imagine that art book and then take all the religious art and all the sacred art out of it, there's not going to be much left, is there? I mean, you very little medieval art in there in the book, not much of the Renaissance. There would be the Islamic mosques and the Hindu temples and the Buddhist statues. And that, I think, is an indication of how central religion is, the history of religion is the history of art. And of course, it's not just a fundamental connection, it's an ancient one that goes back thousands of years, perhaps even tens of thousands of years. So I know I'm going to probably get in trouble later, probably, but sure, I won't name names. Tens of thousands of years, because of course, when people think of some of the earliest art, if we call it art, it's probably not the right term to use. The earliest art, the cave paintings and these Paleolithic figurines, we will of course never know exactly what function these objects served. But many scholars, I don't know, Haeckel is one of them, have argued that these objects may have performed some or had some talismanic or ritualistic functions, had some role in mediating physical with the spiritual realm. And obviously, as organized religions emerged in the ancient world, in the Middle East, in North Africa, in the Indian subcontinent, art became a really valuable tool in the way those religions actually function. So in those places, in the ancient world and through the medieval world, art was used to celebrate the power and the splendor and the wealth of religious institutions. It was used to evoke feelings of awe and reverence, and of course, it was used to help people understand the religions to which they belonged. And I mentioned in the brochure the famous quotation by Pope Gregory, the 6th century Pope, where he described religious paintings as Bibles for the literate, the Hypera, that were images that we used to communicate religious narratives and to help people understand theology when they basically comes read texts. In many parts of the world, there was no distinction between the sacred and the sacred image, between God and its representation. And so the image itself was subject to a veneration. And of course, this idea, this very powerful idea, proved deeply controversial. There were many thinkers around the world, primarily in Western Europe, but not exclusively so, who started to fear this thing called idolatry, this sense that people would be worshipping idols, they would worship all sorts, instead of the gods themselves. And this led to enormous sway of iconoclasm across parts of the world. And that iconoclasm is still with us in the 20th century. I don't know if other people remember. I remember, I think it was about 25 years ago, watching on television as the Taliban destroyed the Banyan Buddhas in Afghanistan, and how more recently Islamic State destroyed enormous quantities of art in Iraq and Syria, again because of these old ideas in spears about idolatry and the iconoclasm that came with it. Uh, I think one of the most extraordinary things about this story, about the relationship between art and the sacred, is that uh, as the modern world in the West became more secularized, as religion moved from the center to the margins of mainstream life, art itself and the art world began increasingly to appropriate and assume and to ape many of religious qualities and effects. Charo mentioned it already, actually. In the 19th and 20th century, there's a great deal of literature that describes how museums and galleries became kind of churches, they became almost like temples themselves, and how aesthetic contemplation came to uh, replace devotional practice and seen as a kind of devotional practice, and how increasingly art became a focus and indeed the locus of sublime, the ineffable, the transcendent. I've included here, obviously, the famous image of Rothko's Rothko's chapel, but there are many other examples that for which I could make a second one. And I think Gregory Rubinoff subscribed to many of these beliefs. I think he was, of course, brought up in a Jewish family, but he wasn't self-religious. In fact, he was deeply skeptical of what he called being the baggage of theology, the prescriptive narratives of organized religion. And he felt that religion at its worst was a form of tribalism that could divide humans from each other. And yet, I think his vision of art was deeply infused in spirituality. Indeed, for him, one of the great works of world art, of world sculpture, was a religious work. It was Donatello's 15th century Monumental. And he was so taken moving into the 20th century with Vasily Kandinsky. We could put Kandinsky's concern with spiritual in art, which is essentially a text about inherent spirituality of art, that he actually uploaded, or probably actually got Karun to upload the text to the different Rubinoff Sculpture Father website, so people could download it easily. Geoffrey, I think, summarized his view. I think I've included it. I actually have included it on the front of the brochure. He summarized his view on all of these things with his quotation. Geoffrey was a great native of maxims. This is one of his great ways. Art provides a means to experience the sacred beyond prescriptive now. So what does that actually mean? Well, I think we know what prescriptive narrative means. It means scripture, it means doctrine, it is the specific stories about specific gods and specific divisions. But by the sacred, I think what Geoffrey understood by the sacred was that we just look around ourselves, look around this park. When you walk around this park and you look at these sculptures, you look at them in the extraordinary geological and natural context. I think Rubinoff wanted to provide a kind of transcendent experience. And you guys have spoken about that, to confront his viewers with something that was mysterious and powerful and beautiful, that transported people to a different level of experience. And I just want to say that not long before Geoffrey died in 2016, I think it was 2000, yeah, but I think it was in the 2016 border, so just before the year before died. Geoffrey and I were sitting at Seabreeze Lodge, having a drink and watching the sun set over the sea. And we were talking about an author both of us were very interested in, and actually came up in conversation about tonight, an author called Rudolf Otter, who almost exactly 100 years earlier had written a book about the holy, with the idea of the holy, where he talked about trying to understand what makes something sacred, or nuance, he preferred nuance, what makes an experience sacred. And Rudolf Otto had these three categories. Well, there's you. Um, Rudolf Otto had three categories, three things that he felt are what defined the sacred experience, each of which he gave fantastic Latin term, the name. And so the first one was the mysterium, which is that a sacred is something that is of it's an other, it's the experience unlike any other experience. You can't really understand it, it's ineffable, you can't really compare it to anything else. Um, his other category was the tremendo, which is that this was a kind of overpowering, awe-inspiring experience that we might use the word sublime to describe. And the final category of the sacred experience was the fascinats, the pastimois, which Otto said that despite these intimidating bonds, despite the fact that something felt wholly other, it was nevertheless attractive and alluring and was drawing us in. And those are the three ideas that Otto finds as sacred. And Jeffrey told me that all great art, whether it was religious or not, should have those qualities. It should be like nothing else. It should overwhelm us with awe, and it should provide us with delight and with beauty and faith. And I should finish as the reason why I come back 15 years. I think the Fifth's work, and Jeffrey's path, has all of those properties as well. So let me very briefly turn to the event itself. We've got 2 days of talks. We've got papers by academics, by practitioners, by artists, composers, by students. And I want to reiterate something that Corinne said as well, or I say at the start of every forum, which is we call these company of ideas forums for our roots. We call them company of ideas forums because A, they're about free exchange of ideas, and B, they're a pleasure of company and companionship. These are statistic enjoyable, engaging, kind places where there's no hierarchy between academics and non-academic, the professors and students, and where everyone is encouraged to speak and to ask questions. There are no such things as stupid questions at accompanying ideas forums. I've made sure that there's plenty of space within the schedule for questions, conversation. I'm sure every speaker would welcome questions. So let's please have those conversations, if possible. We have 13 speakers to get through over the next 2 days. So